Well, it's time to move on to our next lesson. So I got these cheap little fins. I have bigger ones, but I'm in a swimming pool, so I don't want to go too far. So the next lesson, I already screwed up, but basically, I got the dive knives from Amazon. Now you're supposed to put a little grease on it before you go. I'm already in the water, but this isn't salt water, so it's not too bad. It's just chlorine. So it takes a while when you get the dive knives to figure out the straps, like how they fit in there. So you know, the rubber goes around the slot, but you want to make sure the little teeth are being gone over, so you don't do it backwards, it'll slip out. And you kind of walk around a little bit to see if they just fall off. I tried it on my thigh, but it just fell off. So I got the cheapest one they bought, this one, and then I went up 10 bucks and got a more expensive one. And the more expensive one is so much better. For 10 bucks, it's a lot meatier handle. Little pounding thing. You want to pound some coral. There's something stuck in there like a gold coin. Got your serrated edge. So you're supposed to, this one actually came with more accessories. It came with the grease. It came with 2 bands. Bigger bands and smaller bands. I don't know what these bigger bands are for. I guess you could put them on your thigh, or maybe go around your waist if you hook them together. But it's good to have extra accessories. Then the cheap one, cheaper, it's like the cheapest one on Amazon. I kind of put it on the inside in case I want to. When it goes on the outside, the handle's backwards. So I put it on this side so the handle, like if it was this side, then the handle would be backwards. So I put it on the inside. You gotta, if you're gonna go on like a trip where you're gonna snorkel for the first time or scuba dive, I'd start planning a month, 2 months in advance to you gotta work everything out, the equipment, make sure it stays on you. You don't want to do this on the day you go on a dive. I'll tell you, it's already taken me a couple hours to put the equipment together, and I had to work on the metal detector. We're going to go through some of that today, underwater metal detector. The scuba book, I could show you the one I'm reading. It's very thorough. But the professional divers have 2 knives, the ones that go 200 feet deep. So I'm like, why just have one? Might as well have 2. The one that I put around here kept moving around. I didn't like that. I guess if you want one up here on the waist, you have to work with it and make sure it's not going to fall off or move around or slip around. The scuba diving book that I'm reading, even when you go to get certified, you're supposed to do 4 swimming pool training classes. So even like you say, oh, he's just doing a swimming pool, he's an amateur. No, this is very important, because as things start to get more complicated, you don't want to be out in the ocean when you don't fully have the muscle memory or the mental memory to handle various challenges and situations that would come up. So what you want to do is like I still have to add the metal detector, but you want to be able to, again, hold your breath, clear your mask, grab your dive knives. Oh, I dropped this one, I gotta back up. Different scenarios like that, while also carrying a metal detector. Okay, and then we haven't even gotten to scuba tanks and the whole scuba apparatus. So in the last video I did I showed you how to pick out your weight. I don't have the wetsuit on today because this is Florida and it's hot already. I don't need a wetsuit today. That wasn't, when I did the wetsuit, the water was cold. But here is the 2 5-pound weights, I think, which add up to 10 pounds, which is what I did. Now when you get the weight belt, I bought the cheapest ones on Amazon, which took a month to get delivered. So again, plan in advance if you're going on a trip. Plan 2 months in advance, and then you should be able to practice. So when I got the belt, it wasn't already hooked up, so I had to go to eBay and look at how different belts, which was interesting, how different belts are weaved into the, it was just like this was separate. So, but then I went back to Amazon. I still couldn't figure it out after watching the YouTube. I went back to Amazon, and right next to the website, I'll show you when I'm editing, there's pictures showing you how to weave it into the belt. Just like you have to weave this into the little clips, because if you don't weave it right, you can pull on it, it'll slide out, which means you could be underwater. So by weaving it correctly, it's not going to fall off. And then this is a quick release, so you want to think about which hand you want to use. Do I want to use the left hand to quick release? Do I want to use the right hand to quick release? Maybe that's the way you normally would wear a belt. So you do the quick release, and it has to be well, it has to fit right. So all of this needs to be done in advance. All of this needs to be done in advance. I mean, even in the book, the scuba book, it says when you go on an out-of-town cruise, scuba vacation, he said you should arrive 1 full day before the scuba diving. Number one, you're going to be, I guess you could call it jet lag, but also when you're dealing with scuba, your pressure in your body changes going up in the air. But anyway, then that day early, you're supposed to get acclimated to the weights. So when you put the weights on, if you just put them on like this, they're going to drag down, especially if there's more than what I have. But basically, when you put the weights on, bend forward. So if I just put on like this, it can drag. Bend forward so they're sitting there like right on your back. Then you put them on. See that? Now, back again. Get the mask wet. Then spit. It's an anti-fog. Get the hair out of away from your face so it doesn't break the seal. Put the mask. Well, I think one of the hard parts of snorkeling, is training your mind. When you're snorkeling at the top, you can breathe, but when you go underwater, you can't breathe, or you breathe in water. But your mind thinks because there's something in your mouth, you can breathe, because you were breathing on the surface. And so it wants to breathe. It's not afraid to be down there because it thinks it can breathe. You know, your mind's like, it's okay because I can breathe. I have something in my mouth. But really, you have to go back to the surface to breathe. So the whole thing, like, to me, is like you have to train your mind to, like, you are in a breathable area on top and then in a non-breathable area underneath. Because your subconscious just wants to go, oh, I can breathe anytime I want. I got this thing in my mouth. Now, obviously, when you're scuba diving, you can breathe. But again, sometimes things go wrong with scuba diving. Tanks run out of air or whatever. And you have to hold your breath. It's hard to clear the mask underwater. I'm sure it's easier if you're scuba because you can breathe, but I think when I open the mask, maybe hair is getting in there and then it won't clear. I have to keep trying that out. That's why you want to practice, because I'm not clearing my mask right. I think when you practice clearing your mask, stay in the shallow end, because it's kind of weird wearing the weights, because normally when I swim in my pool, I naturally float to the surface. Then I realized when I opened my eyes, I'm sitting at the bottom and I'm like almost out of air. So that's why you do all of this, because there's so many different variables. I might have too much weight. Like, now that I took the wetsuit off, I think the weights are heavier, pulling me to the bottom a little more than they should. I may only need one of these instead of two, or even, like, you know, different size, like 2 pounds. This is 10 pounds, about 10 pounds. Maybe I only need 7 pounds or 5 pounds. So this is why I'm out here, because I'm practicing all of these things. Or you know, you could drown basically if you're not, you know, you're thinking about the mask while you're holding your breath, but then you panic because your mask is full of water, but you're sinking to the bottom because you got weights on where you're normally not sinking to the bottom. And then you start to panic even more, and you just want to get out of the situation, so you just swim to the top as fast as you can and pull your mask off because you're running out of air. And so all of these things, and just imagine your foot is stuck in a fishing net at the same time. Like, all of these things, you need to practice and practice to be comfortable with. I knew it was going to be like this. I'm like, you don't just jump in the ocean and start snorkeling like it's some kind of walk in the park. You know, it's not. It's very complicated once something goes wrong. Like, you know, even getting started, you know, you inhale some water and you kind of freak out a little bit, or the water's stuck in here when you're trying to breathe, and then you want to pull that out, pull your mask off, but you're not all the way to the top yet. And it's just like, it's chaos. So this is why you stay in the shallow end for a while, and then you move out to the deep, you try some things, and you come back to the shallow end and try some, you know, you gotta just, you have to be able to just, it all just become natural. Like, because when you go in the ocean, there's rip tides, you can get stung by a fish, you know, there's so many different things that can be happening at the same time, and something else goes wrong. And so this is where you start out small, and then slowly start to be able to handle. I even didn't realize I had that the knife didn't go all the way into locked into place. I found it at the bottom of the pool. I didn't push down on it hard enough. Like this one, I have to hold the bottom. Well, maybe not. But anyway, I found it at the bottom of the pool, so when I pushed it down, it didn't lock into place. This one, the cheap one, actually locked into place fairly quickly. Just, I don't even need two hands. This one I almost need two hands because the lock's a little stronger. Otherwise I'm pushing it off my leg. Well, I kind of jam it in there. So this is how you learn, because you know, even you can even drown in your own pool if you get too many different variables going on at one time. I mean, I'm glad that I could go to the side and grab the side at certain times when I was inhaling some water. So I was thinking, man, if I was out in the ocean, there's nothing to grab. I mean, you've got to be able to do this without grabbing the side of the pool. So just got to keep practicing. Yeah, so I'm trying to clear the mask. I don't think it gets all the way clear like when you first put it on. There's still some water at the bottom. It gets trapped in there. But I realize, you know, you don't just tilt your head back. I mean, you gotta like turn, like the bubbles have to come up out of the bottom while you're holding the top. So it's like you can blow the nose until the water gets below your eyes, and then it's like I can even blow almost all of it out, but to get the little bit at the bottom, that's when you got to hold it until you can almost go all the way upside down till this part is up, and even still you don't get it all. Like for some reason, I don't know, I may be doing it wrong. I'm just giving you my experience. By the way, as long as we're talking about the knives, anything that you swim with or go in the ocean, you have to rinse off all your equipment when you're done. Reason being, the salt will dry and corrode everything it touches. And the chlorine also, when it dries, turns into crystals and corrodes things. So, at the end of every dive or whatever swim that you're doing, You have to rinse, get a hose and rinse everything off that's your equipment. You're just gonna hang dry. And then you apply the grease to your dive knives. Okay, or they will rust too. Even stainless steel rusts. Because inside stainless steel is steel. So when the water finally breaks through, so rinse, grease your knives, rinse your equipment, anything you used, anything you brought in the water that you want to keep. This is a dive bag. It's kind of Rubbermaid. So after I rinse everything and dry it, it can all go in the same bag. So it's just preservation of the money you spent. So I think this was like $12, this is like $22, but I mean, try to go as cheap as you can. You can get $100 ones if you want to, $300 ones. But now we're going to go with the metal detector, the underwater. This has a program just for diving. Yeah, I'm not sure you have to use it, but all of this is waterproof. Okay. And if you go really deep, you have to change one of these rubber fittings, but we're not going deep. I showed you how to hook that up. That's the antenna. So these two can talk. The computer and the coil and you can all talk to each other. You can't do it wirelessly underwater. And then there's a little piece of plastic. When you rinse this off and put it up, you have to put this in the plastic so it retains its shape. If it doesn't retain its shape, it won't stay on your head. So again, even without scuba diving equipment, we're getting more complicated. So this has to go behind your head where the mask is, and then you know, you can't just pull off your mask because this is all going to come with it. So this is why we do it step by step by step, getting more complicated each time. So let's go ahead and, so this would go like this, and then right here, not in the ear, right in front of the ear like that. So you go mask. Should have a ponytail, but I didn't have any ponytail rubber bands. I gotta go to the store. But anyway, you should have a ponytail so the hair doesn't fall into your mask. Let's do a new anti-fog. The tuna. So what I'm gonna do is just gonna throw some chunks of metal in the pool, rusty old metal. Got some coins, quarter, another quarter, couple of pennies, over here, over there, old rusty screwdriver. Just toss that into the deep end. Okay, then we're gonna see if we can get some hits with the metal detector and what it's gonna sound like. With or without the metal. And this is how you become an underwater scuba diver treasure hunter. And we're gonna find them gold doubloons. It would be nice if I didn't have to work so much. And somebody would send me 100,000. So I can get some more, don't have to go to work every day. That's okay, when the gold doubloons come in, right? Who gets to share? Right now, just me. We'll see. You might think about sending in some dough one day. instead of crypto. I'm already having a conflict with the mask. These have to go right there. Snorkel. That. Right. I'm going to turn it on. Make sure you're charged up. Take out the headphones you're using. And the DS2. Take out the one with the squiggly lines is the bone conducting. Press that button. Then I'm going to change over to diving. I'm not sure if I want a long arm or a short arm. You can stretch it out. What? Here goes. Get to playing with the metal detector and you forget you gotta breathe. It's also making a lot more noise when there's not metal. When there's metal, makes a different noise, but it's not metal, just floating around, it's making too much noise. So I have to adjust the settings. Let's just try beach. I think there might be metal in my concrete in my pool. That's what the problem is. Yeah, see, the tricky part is knowing when to give up playing with the metal detector so you can go up and breathe. I think there's rebar in the pool, concrete, and so it's just going, anytime it wants. So I might have to hold the metal up on top of something. If I hold a penny in my hand, it's going hog wild. But when that metal's on the pool, it's all, you can hear it change, but it's going off because of the rebar in the pool. try it long. So for snorkeling, I just figure you want this fully extended, and then you want to snorkel where you're maybe this far off the bottom, and then you can breathe while you're metal detecting. You just float along and just hold that. Look, I can go this deep with my arm and then still breathe across the top. So you want this fully extended. And when I get to that big piece of steel, it's going off like for the rebar in the pool all the time. When I get to that big piece of steel, it kind of goes crazy. It goes, ah, the quarters and the pennies, you know, they go off, but they're also sitting on top of the rebar, so it's kind of like a double blast. But that's how you learn what things sound like. What does a quarter sound like? What the piece of steel sound like?